Welcome to another episode of the Midwest Artisan, where we dive into all things Laravel web development. I'm your host, Andy Hinkle.
And I'm your co-host, Dalton McCleary.
Joining me today is a special guest, Doug Sisk. So Doug is the creator and maintainer of WDW Passport. It's a Laravel application designed for planning for your Disney World trip, which you can check out at wdwpassport.com. So Doug, welcome to the show. For those that may not know you, would you like to introduce yourself?
So I'm Doug Sisk. I live in Orlando, Florida. I work remotely as a lead developer for Fused, fuseagency.com. We're based out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That's where I grew up, but now I've kind of bounced around moving. I was in Denver for a bit, and now I've been in Orlando for 3 years, but yeah, I do. So during the day, it's mainly e-commerce, Laravel apps. We have some older WordPress sites and stuff like that, but we've kind of been rebuilding and focusing on just a couple of clients. And then the WDW Passport's kind of where my playground for new Laravel features and whatnot. And it was just kind of a fun thing. And then in the last couple of years or so, it's turned into an extra couple $100 a month. So nice to have.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, so I actually came across WDW Passport, like your site, years ago when I was planning it for a Disney trip. And I've been using it ever since. So right before our trips, rather than if it's a few weeks or a few days out, I'll hop on and use this crowd. You have a tool in there. It's called a crowd levels widget or something like that. And so it compares crowd levels to historical or average values. It gives you a score from 1 to 10.
Yeah, it's very similar to it's mainly based off of what touring plans. They're kind of like the de facto, they're the ones that actually do predictions, and touring plans they're pretty good at their predictions because they don't just based off of wait times and stuff like that. They use school calendars and all these little factors that go into how crowded Disney gets. And I just didn't really see a need to compete with that, and I think I have see better value in just showing it what it was in the past than try to do predictions, because I don't have a computer science degree. I don't know how to do algorithms and stuff like that. I've dabbled in it probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I just couldn't make it work. And I mean, this is way before AI was a huge thing, so I don't even know if it. Now these days, if it's a little bit easier to do, it's just something that I've just kind of just been it's not worth it, because most people, I'm number one on Google for people when you search Disney wait times. So I actually just upgraded I have a self-hosted analytics service, but I wasn't using the location database, which I finally upgraded and downloaded about a week or so ago, and it's something ridiculous. 80% of the traffic is here from Orlando, so I think it's legitimately people in the parks or
Locals.
the hotel rooms or whatever googling Disney wait times. And I'm not sure if the Disney app appears even in Google, but yeah, I'm number one on the non app list.
Killer SEO term right there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's taken me a while to get there. Back in the day, when I first launched the site, I was, I only had a couple hundred people a month. And, for a while it was, it would never, up until a couple years ago, it really was not a money making thing. And then in the last couple of years, it's, with advertisements. And then I have the dining alerts that for that, I only charge $5 a month. And that covers the hosting costs for that, because that's a little bit intensive, especially now because Disney's gotten a little bit better about bot detection, so I've had to up my game with that.
Yeah. It's so the crowd levels was kind of a really unique thing. It's primarily what I love to use, and so we have annual passes, and we have a 1.5-year-old. So it's been a great tool for us as a family strategically planning our trip, and so we can adjust our plans based on what we see. If one of the parks, say Magic Kingdom, for example, is looking very busy, we might pivot and go to Animal Kingdom instead. We might see the crowd has been looking a little bit lighter there in recent days.
Yeah, the live crowd thing, I can't even remember when I pushed it. I think it was a year or so ago. And it was just something, it was just a shower thought I had one day, and then built as kind of a separate scale, because obviously you have to build a separate scale off of that. They have the daily average scale, and then you have to build a separate scale for each hour of the day for that, because in the morning a ride's probably going to have a super long wait time, and then as the day goes on it fluctuates, because the bigger, more popular rides, they're really busy right away in the morning, and then they kind of taper off, and then they get busier again in the afternoon as people start to show up, more people start to show up.
Locals. So. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so like when a couple weeks ago I was looking at like crowd sizes for our upcoming trip. I went to your site, and I just had that moment of realization of like how much like I like use the site, and I was just like, wonder which company's behind the site. I actually thought like, wonder like company wise who would be behind it. And so I clicked the about page, and there was your picture, and I thought, wait a minute, I know this guy. And I was like, then I realized I talked to you at Laracon, and it blew my mind. I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm sitting on the couch with my wife, and I'm like, no way. And my wife is like, is everything okay? Are the other crowd levels going to be high? I'm like, and it's in Laravel? And so, but for me, it was like one of those small world moments I just didn't expect. I'm like, I met this guy at Laracon. And
yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, when I'm at Laracon, I really don't talk about it. I talk about more about my actual like business side. I don't really want to go to that too much on since we're talking about WDW Passport, and I don't know. I don't have much clearance to talk about our main client like in public online. So
right, yeah, for sure, yeah. At Laracon, you never know who you might run into. It's just like you don't run into anyone, and they would tell you that information. It's kind of it's kind of find out either after fact or through other means. But it's so neat of what you've built with WD Passport over the years, and I'd love to at least start off with the origin of like what inspired you to originally create it. I'd love to see, or I'd love to hear like what's the story behind it, what inspired you to create such a helpful tool.
Honestly, I think it was just out of boredom. Like it was just kind of like it'd be cool to collect all these wait times and have it myself, because really the only company at the time that had all of that stuff saved and publicly available was Touring Plans. And you had to be subscribed to do that. And back then, Touring Plans definitely is like most data-driven, like, developer-focused companies. They have the data. It's really impressive what they've done, but the design is a little lacking. They did redesign their website, I think, last year, and it's a lot better. Unfortunately, a lot of the power features got removed in the redesign, which it kind of stinks. And that's kind of what I mainly did WDW Passport for, was just for my use, just for my data. Like I at the time I couldn't really find, like, there weren't a lot of really good third-party wait time apps and whatnot. And at that time I was living in Denver, so I was going down to Disney like once a year. There has always been an interest for me. It's not like, I feel like that's kind of where it's nice, because I have such a big interest in it, is that it gives me a place, like I kind of mentioned before, to test out new Laravel features, because during the day I'm not able to do that at work necessarily, because we're having to get stuff up to the production and whatnot, and you just don't have a lot of time to mess around with that kind of stuff. The client doesn't care about reverb or whatever. It's just is the feature the feature we talked about up. So it just started out like that, and it just kind of snowballed over the years. It was kind of just off in a corner of the internet for a while, and some people found it and posted it in like Reddit way back in the day, and then in the last couple of years or so with the SEO traffic, it just exploded, and now it's known quite a bit. I'm kind of surprised how often, like, I don't see a lot out about it. Like, I think the day I look over and I see somebody have it open on their phone in the parks, I'll probably like like jump on them and like be like, okay, guess what? You just earned yourself a free drink.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So what was the year that it originally started, when you
I think
started
it
building it?
was, I think it was 2017. I think that's when it was. I have the commit history. It's two different versions. Yeah, 2017, March of 2017 was when I started collecting the wait times. And I don't collect the wait time. I collect the wait times, but the code that interacts with Disney was not necessarily my code. It's this guy from the UK, and it was originally a Node library. So it was a Node JS script for a while. Back then in 2017, it was pretty simple, just API call point. I probably could have done it with PHP if I wanted to, but the library was so well done, and it was pretty easy to set up on a cron script to run a Node script every so often. So that was just a simple API call, and like the authentication was just like a single API key that everybody in the world shared. Like it wasn't that complex. And then a couple years later, they started using CouchDB in the app, and so he had to rewrite the library, and then another couple years after that, they started actually enforcing like individual tokens for each like app, and so he actually moved it off of being a library into a cloud platform. So it's themeparks.wiki now, and that's pretty much what everybody in the industry does. So it's this one app that's in the cloud, and everybody's using that API now. And it's not just Disney; it's Universal, Six Flags, SeaWorld, like and the European parks too. Like there's a ton of them. So and we actually, I'm not sure if I've heard of anybody else using it yet, but we've started to test out in the last like week or two a WebSocket. So before I was having to, make a manual API call every time to update weights, and now we're utilizing a WebSocket from them.
Wow.
So it's really cool. So basically, as soon as he sees that there's been a change, I get notified. I save it to my database, redo all my calculations and stuff like that. It's really cool. Like it opens the door to a lot. I've toyed with the idea. I haven't done anything yet of looking into doing like notifications and stuff like that, because it's so nice now with iOS now supporting push notifications in web apps, because I'm not an app developer by any means, and I have no drive to learn to be an app developer. It could be fun, but I just I don't have time for that. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a Laravel developer.
when you develop, it's your full-time job, Laravel, and then do your passion project with WDW Passport, and it could take up a lot of time. There's probably little room to pick up like you could do probably like a PWA or something.
Yeah. I was thinking. I actually just added a week or so ago to the site. When you're on the wait times page, it now prompts you to add to your home screen, because I've done that for years, and I don't think a lot of people have known about it. And the way I actually have it set up, it's Livewire, the wait times page, and so I actually have figure out a way. There's a little snippet of code that I can detect when you switch like tabs, or reopen the page on your phone, and then it triggers the call to refresh the wait times.
Very nice. So you started in Node, right, in a JavaScript app, and then
it's always been Laravel.
Okay.
It's always been Laravel, but the actual like wait time fetching was this little Node script, but it was going to a MySQL database, and then the Laravel side was reading the MySQL database, and that was a Vue app until a couple years ago, and then I rewrote it into Livewire.
Nice. So is it like a tall stack? So looking at your website, it looks like a tall stack with Tailwind. Is it Tailwind that you have? You have Tailwind?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Tailwind, Alpine, Livewire. and Laravel. So fantastic.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's definitely my design skill has definitely changed over. I'm like in any other Laravel developer from the last like 5 years. The refactoring UI was a game
mhm.
changer for me, and it really helped me with my design skills. And that's kind of one of the other things I really always wanted to focus with WDW Passports. Kind of mantra was not necessarily being the most power. There's another website out there called Thrill Data, and they have they have way more charts, way more data than me. But if you go on there, it's admittedly a bit of a mess, and I've always been very focused on having it being better designed, being very clean and easy to use and understand. You know, kind of taking that Apple approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could do more power stuff, but I kind of like having it be a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because I've seen some of these other sites, and like to your point of what you said, they're not well done. They have kind of different points, different ways, and some of these I don't even understand what they're. It's all like some park lingo or abbreviations, and you just have it very clean, very elegant. Here's a chart. Here's the ride. Here's the current wait time, and
Yeah, I
then
try
you
to
go.
avoid the abbreviations too much. I do that on mobile on the tabs like at the top to switch between the parks, but that's pretty straightforward. But
Yeah,
other than that, I try to not do too much lingo, and then I have that little button that you can click, and then it pulls up the overlay and it tells you what all those little icons mean. I think there's the one thing I don't have described is that I kind of detect the lightning lane refills because,
hmm,
well, if for anybody that's not been to Disney recently, they renamed FastPass to Lightning Lane a couple years ago. It's very similar to the FastPass Plus system that was there before 2020, and Disney will refill certain rides as the day goes on, and I'm use like an average over the last like 5 days or so to kind of determine whether or not there might be a refill time, and I show that on certain rides. So I need to probably add that to the prompt because there's a little thing that pops up from time to time that says LL refill, and I'm sure that people are like,
what?
what?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, admittedly, Doug, I am not a Disney person. I don't go to Disney, so this is the first time I'm seeing your app, and the big thing that I'm the most curious about is you said it was in Vue before, and then you switched to Livewire. What was like your biggest deciding factor to do that switch? Like, what was it about Livewire specifically that
I think
like maybe there's
it's kind of what I mentioned. It's this is my playground for new features and whatnot. And when I saw Livewire a couple of years ago, I was really, really intrigued by it because I prefer to write in Blade and PHP because it's just more powerful. It's just more
agree?
powerful to have. It's not that I'm writing spaghetti code and putting like a bunch of PHP functions and all that into my Blade templates. It's just that there's just so much more functions and like structures and stuff like that available in PHP than Vue. And really, when you do a Vue app, you're having to duplicate the code twice because you're writing the API endpoint and then you're having to write the Vue, and both the way WD Passport works and the way we work at Fuse, we're a small team. There's only 3 developers on our team, so it's not like I understand with a much larger organization where you actually have a split front end and back team where Vue and JavaScript makes sense. But for a small team like ours or just like a personal project like WDW Passport, it just made more sense to try out Livewire, and it's turned out great. I mean, three was night and day. Like, it's not to say 2 was bad. It's just 3 is there's been so many improvements. Like, where I'm writing a massive e-commerce app right now from scratch, both front end and back end in Livewire, and it's just mind blowing. Like, we're obviously in the testing environment, so it's only like 10 orders in the database, and not like what it'll be in production, which is like 1.5 million orders. I work faster because the problem with you is you have to like sometimes download packages and stuff and the bloat, and I understand some people get wary with Livewire because you're actually having to make those requests, back to the Laravel app, and it's re-rendering and stuff like that, and that is a little tricky. At first, I had some issues with that, especially with WDW Passport's wait times, because I'm having to. I think it's like 22 million wait times now, so. Wow.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. 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 So that's obviously a performance thing. I have to, be careful with my SQL query. So I do actually do all of that on the queue now. And when you hit the wait times page, it's actually loading from a cache. You're not hitting the database live.
Okay.
But when you do go to the past crowds page and go to an individual day and view the wait times, that's why it spends a little bit. It's because it's having to load all of that, but that thankfully is also cache. So once you refresh the page, you'll notice that it's instantly.
Yeah. So I'm curious too. Then if you're using Livewire, are you using stuff like poll? Are you polling? Are you doing some?
Yeah, I do. I don't think I use the built-in polling. I think I do. I have a custom polling because I watch whether or not you're on the background. Now I want to say now is smart enough to know whether or not the page is open and won't poll in the background. But it's like I mentioned before, where I built this. I figured out a way to detect when you change between tabs, or reload the page, or when you're on your phone and you switch between apps and you reload the app, because a lot of times with Safari, with iOS, like it just saves the state. So when you go back in, if you don't have a hook like that, it won't necessarily refresh, and especially with timeout polling and all that. So that way, when you go back into the page, it immediately gets the newest data.
I know with in working with Talton, I think we both have ran into this a few times with like Livewire and polling. Like we'll launch an app and be really excited about it. Then we'll hear this, like we'll get a screenshot and it's like a session expired, or if you like leave your screen on for a while, then come back, you'll get that. And so then we have to realize, we need to like refresh it, if they come back, or if they come back to that window, and it's so
I think it's gotten a little better on 3. I don't think 3 has as many, I've noticed, as many issues on 3.
3's been robust. Do you talk to Caleb Porzio very often? Have you?
No. And I had to hunt him down like at Laracon this year. Like I didn't see him until day 2. Like I was like walking around all day 1. I was just like, "Where's Caleb?"
So Caleb, his wife is a Disney planner, and the reason I bring this up is he's like a big Disney guy. So I was like, I think he would love the fact that you're using Livewire with this. But he's really big into Disney. His wife is a Disney planner, and because he's from Buffalo, and they come down to Orlando area, and they live there for like the first 3 months of the year. And so, but the work that he's done into Livewire, and it's been exceptional, and version 3 has been fantastic. So
it's just really cool now with with the attributes and stuff like that. And I actually just started like yesterday, the e-commerce app I'm working on, just started working on building my own attributes, and that's it's just nuts to see where PHP has gone in the last couple of years, because it's a great language to work in, and any of the naysayers are just fools.
Tell them, Doug, PHP is not dead. Doug said so.
So when I was talking with you, you said that people do kind of poke fun with you for having PHP. So these other people that you work, like similar products that you work with, are they generally kind of a Node setup, or Python?
Yeah, I want to say a lot of people have been posting mobile apps. A lot of people have been building out mobile apps. So if you go to the themeparks.wiki website, there's a link to a Discord, and we have a Discord, and we have several different channels. We got just a general discussion. Then we got showcase if you have a project, any technical questions. The actual like backend API of how it all works is open source, so you can go through and see kind of how it works. I think there are some bits and pieces that are behind closed doors, like the actual like authentication with Disney and all that. It's over my head as a non-app developer. Like, if I'm sure if you were an app developer, like you'd go in and be like, oh yeah, this totally understand this.
Yeah, so and you kind of touched on this, but so when you reach out to these APIs, when you that use the what was that service? I'll make sure I get that right. The service with all of the different parks at their wait times.
It's themeparks.wiki.
Theme Parks Wiki. So, is that the API that you interact with the most when you're hitting up for the wait times, or do you go to Disney directly?
Yeah, no, I only go through that API for the wait times now, because there is no way for me to directly communicate with Disney unless I authenticate with them, and that's kind of a complex process. And they've really kind of in the last couple of months tightened down. They have a lot more tighter bot detection and stuff like that. I think a lot of that deals with the Disney Plus password sharing. They started to crack down on that a lot, I know, in the last couple months, and kind of that's everything else in the Disney company kind of got roped up, because Disney uses like a single sign-in now for the entire company. Like, it's
Wow.
If you go to the ESPN, it's like the same like login box.
Same login.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, but it's definitely kind of made it a pain in the last recently, because it used to, it was pretty easy to get into stuff like before 2020. They had like it was pretty accessible to get the wait times for buses at the resorts. So I had a page back in the day where you could go into select your resort and see the wait times for buses, and poof, gone. That's been, I don't even think that feature works at Disney, like Disney itself anymore. Like, I feel like the few times I do take buses from the resorts, they have the TV screens and it just says every 15 minutes. Whatever. Yeah. It's like, it was so cool, because you could get to the bus stop and it's like, oh, the bus isn't going to be here for 20 minutes. It's like, oh, cool. Then I'm going to go back inside and send the air conditioning.
Yeah, so Dalton and listeners that don't go to Disney often, but they have bus transportation. Will take you either like buses to the parks, and then also they have a thing called the Skyliner, which is like it's kind of similar to like a ski lift that will take you, but it's like a cabin. So it's enclosed, and they'll take you to the park. So depending on which resort you stay. So traditionally, a way to get to parks is by bus, and when you're there, there's no way to see the wait times for the buses. So if you're going to Magic Kingdom, sometimes the next bus can be up to 20 minutes. And this is in the hot Orlando sun. You're standing out there waiting for this bus. And but when you don't know how long the wait time is till you get to the front and have the monitor. And Doug, to your point, sometimes that it's not very accurate, or it just says every 15 minutes, and you just have to wait it out.
I think they've just straight up gotten rid of it. I don't think they do it anymore. I can't think of the last time I was at a resort and it actually had a wait time like counting down. It just said every 20 minutes or so, and it's useless.
Yeah. One of the things you offer on your site is dining alerts, and that's something that I didn't realize till just a couple weeks ago when during my discovery of this. I was like, well, this is really cool for dining alerts too. So is that something that's done with interacting with the theme parks wiki? Like, is that the
the theme parks wiki guy has considered adding that on, but so far no. And I think especially they redid the system about a year or so ago, and the new system is they actually finally hired competent developers because it's got bot detections, it's got a waiting room system. So used to, I was able to run my my searches just through a proxy on a Laravel queue and hit the actual API points. And now I actually am running a full-on, I wrote it in Python, in with Selenium. So it's running a full
Wow.
browser and
Wow.
it's having to do those requests one by one by one. So I can't do it as frequently as I used to, which is why I kind of only charge $5. And I kind of warn people, it's just like, it's semi-successful. It's not as successful as the system used to be, but it still does a pretty good job because, of course, now because my app got knocked out, everybody and their mom had written a dining alert system on the old thing by like last year or so, and it was just wild to watch all those just poof disappear.
Crashing down. Yeah.
I think Mouse Dining and Mouse Watcher are still going, and there's I think there's an actual like app called Stakeout. I think that's still running, but for the most part, I know Touring Plans had one and it's gone, and they had zero interest in rebuilding. And I know with me right now, I've kind of hit a point where I built out the system, and if Disney does any more changes where I have to fight with it, I'm just going to give up, because at this point, I actually make more on the majority of my revenue comes from advertisements from Google AdSense than it does through the subscriptions. Not a whole lot of people are doing the dining alerts anymore because honestly, the dining availability is just so much better these days. A couple of years ago, especially during COVID, it was
COVID,
awful. Yeah, it was awful. Like, it was impossible to find tables. And but I think, especially now, now that Disney's blocked a lot of those automated search systems, which I can't even remember what year it was, like 2016, 2017, somewhere around there. There were services that were actually automated buying, like booking the reservations, and that was the first time Disney had ever went to the developers and were like, nope, and gave them cease and desist letters.
Wow.
And that's the last time I've heard of apps getting cease and desist from Disney. Nothing related to the wait times, dining alerts, since as long as you don't auto book something, they don't seem to really care too much. Now I know that there's this app called Standby Skipper. They actually reached out to me pre-launch, and they've been around for like a year or two now, and I've been kind of surprised that Disney hasn't sent them a cease and desist, because I'm pretty sure they auto book lightning lanes. So Dalton probably doesn't know, but if you've been to Disney and have the My Disney Experience app, you can send an email invite and invite people into your My Disney Experience account. And so that's what the Standby Skipper does, is they have their own My Disney Experience account. Then they invite you into that, and because they've been invited in, then they can book. And I think they're utilizing the actual like API endpoints, and they figured out the authentication and all of that. And it's a really cool thing. It's something I don't want to dabble in, because that's you're connecting to people's literal Disney accounts. When you're on my site, you're just I'm just searching the site. I'm not connecting to your actual Disney account. And it seems like the people that did Standby Skipper did their research and got a lawyer involved. Like,
Wow.
they're pretty serious about it. Like, which I've got to wonder if they're ever going to hit the ROI on that, because
Yeah.
that has got to be
That's a scary
huge
company run. Yeah.
That's a huge amount of, especially, I've told my friends this, that's an insane amount of risk, because you're working with an unauthorized API that you have no documentation for. It's not even really an API. You're tapping into another service that on a whim can change.
Yeah.
Which it has before. It has before. I've had my site knocked off for 4 or 5 days at a time, where the wait time system was down for 4 or 5 days because Disney made a change, and then we're left scrambling trying to figure out how to support it.
Yeah, that could be a scary place when you like kind of depend on a third party API. But when I feel like the way you run it is at a good place. It's kind of at a passion project level. It's just like if it goes down, I'll kind of run with the punches. But these people who make these quite what it sounds like quite the big investments, it's such a big risk. So it can be a scary place to be in. So one thing I wanted to ask on is just being a solo developer into this project, and as we have these side projects, we have all these great ideas that might come our way. For me personally, I have a hard time with getting past that. What Aaron Francis from Laravel community, he calls it just the last 10% or just that last marketing initiative to just get past the craft or kind of the marketing. You build your app and you're excited about it. You got all the fun parts. You built your app, you did all the things that were difficult, and now you have to do the marketing. You have to like set up your domain and just get it live and then actually launch it. So my question for you is like, what advice do you have for us, and we're just as developers looking to build like niche websites or tools around their passions, particularly overcoming that like 10%, getting over that hump of actually pushing through it, getting it live?
I think it's one of those things you just have to accept. It's not going to immediately happen. When I launched WDW Passport, that was in 2017, and I only had a couple hundred people visiting a month. Like, it took me years to finally get a Google AdSense payment sent to me. Like, I was running at a loss and luckily I was just on like a $5 Linode, and then all of a sudden, the SEO work started to pay off. It started getting ranked on Google and whatnot. And I think, especially with like a passion, like I could have grown WDW Passport much faster had I been like living here in Orlando that time and producing other content than just wait times, like just running like a blog, like and doing content like that. And that's just something I've thought about doing, but I've ended up not doing because I kind of enjoy that I get to go to the parks and be like, yeah, I have a website,
Yeah.
but it's not a blog, and I don't need to be like taking pictures of everything I'm doing at the park to, I have a Disney site that I'm making money off of paying for my time going to the parks, but I don't need to actually do anything in the parks to support it. Like, it's because I see people all the time. It's become a big thing here lately, like just the bloggers and stuff like that. It's not even the bloggers anymore. It's like TikTok, Instagram, stuff like that. Those people, some of them, they have a legitimate make a living off of it, but
Wow.
they're living their entire time at Disney behind their phone because they're having to capture everything. Mm-hmm. Which it's just like the live streamers, which I get the appeal, but oh man, I was at a bar. I was at a bar once, and the guy next to me was live streaming, and I about whacked the phone. Like, it was, it was so annoying. Because I'm I'm trying to have a conversation with the bartender, like about like local, like not like stuff I really want live streamed.
Yeah, we had a very similar encounter, and they're coming more and more popular recently, and so yeah, it can really throw you off from the kind of the vibe of just enjoying your time with the family. Now you got a screen, just like some guy just showing everything that's going on around
but back to what you were saying with it's this time. I think it's and if you do have the capital, I think I've never advertised my site. The only time I've ever done anything promotional wise, I sponsored a tree at the Give Kids the World holiday event about 2 years ago. And that really wasn't that much. It was only a couple $100, and they just put a sign out in front of a tree that I got to decorate. But other than that, kind of hardly got any scans from the QR code. Like, it was more of a just supporting the organization. It was
for sure.
Than promoting my business at all. It's I think developing something you are interested in and you're passionate in, because if you're just trying to create something for somebody else, especially as a side project, you're not going to really have motivation for that. Like, it's going to be hard to not to bag on our clients or anything, that because that's what I do all day at work. I'm working on other businesses that have hired us, but I don't necessarily, have a say in that, And I've been working with these clients long enough now that I do have an interest in like the actual industry. But when you first sign on a client, you're not big into it, but you have to be because that's, you're getting paid. But when you're doing a side project and there's no guaranteed money in it, it's hard to get passionate about it. And I think that's what, for me, it's ended up being a lot of fun because it was always in the back of my head that it would be kind of nice to make money off of this. But at the same time, I didn't really want to put in the capital and the effort and like that. I could have, I absolutely could have, but I just wanted to see what can I build from nothing, from doing organic. And it's just been nuts. It's taken time to get there, but it's been nuts to, just say like, yeah, I've spent zero on advertising and I haven't needed like to post on Instagram every day. And, Yeah.
Cause I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Doug. I recently built some passion projects on the side. However, I don't tell anybody, but I have a lot of paid advertising. And let me tell you, it makes my armpits sweat thinking about all the money you're just pouring out there, and you might get like one click, and then that one click might not even do anything. But so yes, I appreciate that thought. I am curious though about like if you had any other passion projects on the side that, let's say Disney does send you a cease and desist. If you do, I would frame that because not every day you get a cease and desist from Disney. Is there something else that might be a contingency plan? Like if you're passionate about another thing, could you build something else along those lines?
Right now I've honestly haven't really thought any more about any kind of other projects to do in my free time because honestly, it's not that I don't have a lot of free time. It's just that, this is my now 12th year full time. And after 12 years, I'm at a comfortable level, salary wise and all of that. I'm not really driven by the money at this point. It's just kind of like when I get done with the day, like I honestly don't do a whole lot of work with WDW Passport at this point. It's kind of been complete for a bit. Like I haven't really built any big new features on in the last bit. It's just kind of maintaining the existing features, right now because it's just one of those things. Like I'm just so busy at my day job that when I'm done, like last thing I want to do is sit behind the computer more. I'm out of here. I'm headed to a brewery, to the theme parks,
Especially living in Orlando, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So to that point, the only thing that like excites me to work past my day job is like when I see new technologies. So things like Flux came out. Oh, I'm excited. I kind of want to try that. That might spark an idea of, I might have just a side project that I can work on for Flux, or I might have a little side project I can work on for Inertia 2.0. Have you seen anything in the news, anything recently been released that sort of has that little spark of inspiration, like, ooh, you know what, I might want to do a little bit of that over here, or I could add Flux
Reverb definitely got my gears turning, but I never really ran with it. Because I thought about it for my wait times page, it'd be really cool to do it, like update instantly and whatnot. But at the same time, Disney's not updating wait times that often to make it worthwhile.
If drones were legal at Disney World, you could do a Reverb-powered drone and then go see the queue lines and say, "Oh, okay."
yeah. No, I've always joked about like building like these my own like bots that I put around that building my own like wait time, like where you're like scanning how many people like walk through the gate, but they'll find those things after not even a day.
So are people asking you for like an app these days, or like I've been curious if apps are making a comeback. So recently they kind of the big push has always been websites. I live in a small town called Santa Claus, Indiana. We have a theme park here. It's called Holiday World
Oh
Splashes
yeah, I'm
Parts.
very aware of Holiday World. Yeah,
Okay,
I
okay,
went there
fantastic.
about 10 years ago.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the owners of Holiday World actually just live a couple doors away from me, and I worked there for several years full time. And that's what actually drove my passion for Disney theme parks, etc. But I've been trying to kind of poke them about getting an official app, something that we could build at our agency for wait times, for just general park information. But the information I get is across the industry is they're like, well, websites are just kind of the main driver. And so I was kind of surprised to see like when
Yeah,
you
it's
mentioned
there. There
apps.
is. I have never gotten any emails or anything from people being like, "Hey, it would be really nice to have this like as an app," because it just works as a website. Like because you just that's what people are doing. They're googling Disney wait times and they pop up and they open it up and I think just look around in the industry. Disney's really the only one in the theme park industry that's kind of gotten that went full on with technology and like
Yeah.
apps and stuff like that. You compare like Universal has an app which is it's fine, but Universal it doesn't come into play as much because they don't have a reservation system for you can make dining reservations, but you don't necessarily need them at Universal. And then stuff like Cedar Point and whatnot, they're kind of the same way. It's the technology required to make those apps work, and that's probably where Holiday World's at, is that the technology needed
Right.
is just so expensive, and you need the cloud server. You need, well, not even that, you need to build like either the detection, like you need to build the detectors in the line, or I think
A lot
I've
of it.
heard,
Yeah.
I can't remember what park. I think some parks do, and maybe this is even at Disneyland, like for the older rides, because Disneyland's, quite a bit older and they haven't invested in the technology as much there. I want to say I heard rumbles that at Disneyland for some of the older rides, they literally just have like a iPhone or iPod or whatever, and every so often they just manually go into their app, then to their internal app and just punch in what they think
Oh, I
the
think
wait
it's
time
15
is.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see a lot of them. They take like a card or like a lanyard and they give it to the person at the front of like they'll take it from the line, and then once they board the line, the person operating the will take it and scan it or something. But yeah,
Yeah,
that is
I
a
see that.
big
I see that
cost.
more often in California than here. I think here,
Yeah.
I think they can do that now with the Magic Bands. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily know if they do or not. A lot of that's all like internal to Disney, and
It's all their
nobody
secrets.
knows.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
That's how they
secret.
make. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So Dalton, did you have anything you wanted? Sorry, I know I've been talking most about Disney lingo quite a bit.
You guys can have your Disney conversation. I'm so curious about your tech stack, really. So please forgive me, Doug, that I'm not a Disney. I don't go to Disney a whole lot, but I am a big Livewire fan. I'm more curious on how you use Livewire with your queue systems. Like, do you have multiple queues? Do you have like a priority queue?
Yeah, so basically right now, when I get a WebSocket now with a wait time, it goes in and it recalculates, does a queue job on the back end that recalculates all of that and puts it into a cache, and then the Livewire component just reads that cache. It won't even attempt to actually run the code to regenerate the wait time like graphs and all of that. It'll just throw like a 503 arrow that says like not available.
How many jobs
Okay.
is that?
Yeah,
Is
that's
how many?
going to be my follow up. How many?
Yeah,
do you
it's
have?
getting.
A ton, right?
Well, I do have it set to do a unique ID, like so the queue doesn't get overloaded. But let me look. So in 5-minute increments, it's running like 43, 50 times. So I don't know, every 10 seconds or so. And you got to, and that's for, there's 4 different parks at Disney World. So each of those has its own like cache entry and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was curious, like when I was looking, I was like, I wonder how many jobs this is running in the background, because like the chart looks like it's every minute you can see, but that's so clever of doing it through WebSockets and just doing a quick refresh and as they come in.
No,
real
it's
time.
great. It's great. Now before it was running every minute. Before it was running every minute and just comparing the previous wait time with the one that's on the API right now, and if it was different, then it would go in and save that, and then I actually do every 15 minutes. I still do because that's how the website used to run. It used to run only every 15 minutes, but I still do that, and I call that the snapshot, because there are some times where lesser busy rides don't update at all. They're just at like 5 minutes all day. And so if I don't have that snapshot running, then it won't save those wait times for the rest of the day. And then you get into the chart at the end of the day, and there's like one time in the morning, and there's no other like time points throughout.
Yeah. So when you're pulling these numbers, is Haunted Mansion, when you said 5 minutes, is Haunted Mansion always 13 from the API, or is it 5
No,
minutes?
it is actually hard coded into the API as 13 minutes.
13. I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
With the WD Passport, are there any hacks that you'd like to share for like planning to the parks? Like for me, when I'm planning, like maybe a tool or something people don't generally use, or maybe something that you personally use all the time, or what you find the greatest benefit out of using WD Passport?
I have a couple of features where I monitor quick spikes. I try to monitor those. So you'll see that like sometimes a ride will be 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's an hour wait. And usually that's because a lot of the rides at Disney have like multiple tracks, or, there's not just one ride. There's like multiple rides that they split up the capacity with. Toy Story Mania ride is a good example. It has 3 different tracks, and often 2 of the tracks will go down, so you have the capacity cut down to a third of what it's supposed to be, and the wait time will go immediately, like up by like an hour. Because I've had that happen like in line. Because the other thing you got to remember, once you get in line, they're not telling you what the sign is out front. So it's really nice to have that in your hand, because we'll do that all the time. We'll get in the line for something, and we'll be standing there, and it's like, this is not taking what they said, or and then load up my site, and it's like, oh great, now it's like posted at like 2 hours.
Oh no. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely going to be watching those lines next time we go. So it'll be in November, so hopefully it won't be too bad. It'll be kind of be the post Halloween stuff. Are you aware of any Laravel developers at Disney World? There's been some proof behind it, but I don't know if you know of any Laravel developers.
I personally don't know any Disney developers. I believe they've started to outsource a lot, and what I heard like years ago, they were Zend. Wouldn't surprise me if they're still Zend. I legitimately just don't know what's going on inside the Disney's inner workings. It's very very closed lips, and seemingly everybody that goes to works there, the contracts you sign with them, like you cannot get an ounce of information. I mean, one of the bars I go to is right across the street from the new Epic Universe for the new Universal theme park. And even after putting a few beers in those workers, they still won't tell you anything.
They'll tell you, yeah.
They still won't. Yeah, the theme park industry, those people, they will not tell you anything. Like,
yeah. Coming from a place where at Holiday World we had a big attraction called Thunderbird, and people would ask me all the time about like try to poke at me, just try to get the smallest hints out of me, like because I knew what the project was. Thunderbird was a wing coaster, kind of what you're describing, and it's just like so badly do you want to kind of toss them a bone or something, but then it's like in your mind you're going like this is you don't want that to come back on you or anything or to the park. And so, and I have some friends that have moved from the theme park industry to working at Disney full time. And when I talk with them, same thing as like you're describing. It's like they won't tell you much about the job. They'll just say it's going great, I love it, but they won't. They don't like to go into a lot of the specifics. You mentioned this earlier. I wanted to ask you about Give Kids the World Village and how you've volunteered and done a lot with them. So for the listeners, Give Kids the World is a nonprofit resort in Florida, and it provides critically ill children and their families with illegal long vacations to to Central Florida theme parks at no cost. So it's a really cool charity. It's actually one of my favorite charities. Working in the theme park industry, you hear that charity all the time, and it's amazing the things they do. So wanted to talk about your experience with them and how that's kind of impacted your work today.
Yeah, for me, it was one of those things. It's really cool for me because I get to volunteer a lot with people that actually work at Disney, and a lot of people that work in really important parts of Disney behind the scenes, and they get the same architects like Disney Imagineering, Universal Creative to build stuff for them. So it's basically kind of like working a theme park job without actually having to work at the theme park. Because people ask me all the time, why don't you work at the parks? It's because I love my job. I love being a developer. I work at a great company. I would be a fool to leave my job. And so doing Give Kids the World allows me to not only get out of the house, but it's kind of like working. I think because they have like theme park rides. They actually have like rides at like you would see it at a theme park, and it's kind of cool to get to control them because and they have the press the buttons and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. It's a great organization, and especially for that recurring theme of something you care about. And it's cool to give back in something I care about, which is the parks. And any theme park fan will tell you, we all know, like, especially in the last couple of years, it's just gotten brutal with prices and stuff like that. You hear more and more about families that just can't afford to go. That's it's their their dream to go to Disney and whatnot, or people that are coming down now and they can only afford like one day in the parks. Well, yeah, it's a really cool organization to work with. It's like working in a theme park, but with no strings attached. It's arguably a much better feeling at night knowing that you're supporting these families that go through so much than shareholders.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Developers love pressing buttons, and so yeah.
No, they actually just opened a STEM kind of like area about a month or two ago, and they've got like animatronics that you can play with. Like it's really, really cool. So yeah, I definitely recommend like people to check out what they're doing, donate to them. I think here in October, last I heard, they were going to be at or near full capacity for the entire month of October, which is fantastic news because when I first moved down here, there were some weeks where we'd only have 10 families on property for the entire week, and it was a ghost town. It was really disheartening, but it's so great to see it now fill to the brim and just like so many people making memories and.
So Dalton, did you have any more questions?
I do not. I think I've poked the technological bear.
Yeah, it's. I think people are very, very shocked how much technology is involved at Disney. And I mean, I remember when they started. I think I have it. It's up on my board over here. I was part of one of the first tests of the electronic FastPass system when they started switching over to that in like 2012. I think that's when they started to test it. And I think the rumors I heard, it's somewhere in the tune of they spent $1 billion on the initial development of the Magic Bands and the FastPass Plus system. And over the years, they've probably spent at this point probably $2 billion in all of this. And I mean, it shows. Like it's admittedly very cool that like the whole like tap styles where you take your band now, like the Apple Watch and the iPhones now work with. It's really cool. It's like you just hold up your watch. Now I don't even wear Magic Bands anymore because I just use my phone. But those tap styles, they've had those tap styles for probably 10 years now, and it's just nuts that those things have worked for so long versus where Universal, they just started testing out facial recognition about a year or so ago, and now it's on all of their entrance gates now. So when you go to Universal, Universal was previously like Disney, where you have a fingerprint, and now they're using faces, and it's kind of smart because it works a lot faster.
Wow.
But you can tell it, like Universal, like it's night and day with Disney and Universal, like the technology wise, like what's going on. Like Universal, like their hotels, it's still very old school. Like you have a room key, like there's no like app for it, like versus Disney where you have like an app and then
Yeah. One of the coolest things that I remember like coming to technology wise with Disney was when I got to my room, my wife went to go get food and I remembered I left my Magic Band with her. And then I remember the cast member telling me that you can unlock the doors now with your phone. And I pull it out, just like, yeah, just raise your phone to the door, and now it unlocked. I was like, this is cool. So
yeah, and I think that's why there's been such a big overlap between developers and Disney in the last like decade or so. I think it always was a big deal. I got into theme parks and all that from Roller Coaster Tycoon back in the day, and that's how I got into web development. Actually, was Roller Coaster Tycoon, was showing projects and building forums and stuff like that. And now, just with the amount of technology inside the parks, like you can't go to Disney without the app anymore.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so Doug, would you like to touch on anything else that we may have missed? We feel like we covered quite a good load of topics, but anything else that you'd like to talk about today?
No, I don't think so. Like, yeah, it's been cool to talk with you guys. I don't really talk with many people about like the inner like technology workings of what I do because it's all whoosh over my friends' heads. My friends know I have the site and whatnot, but they're never really asking me about like how it works or whatnot. They do sometimes ask like, hey, do you think it's going to be crowded tomorrow or whatnot? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's just like what I put on the website. I don't do crowd predictions. I don't know.
For sure. So for people listening, where can they find you, Doug?
So yeah, I'm on Twitter, Doug_Sisk. I don't really tweet a whole lot. I'm not like very active on social media. I know that's something I've needed to be better about. Like it's just a lot of my work is not secretive, but it's pretty specialized, and we're kind of in a cutthroat industry, and we don't want to be giving our competitors knowledge.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, but
it is very fun and interesting, though. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do. I definitely need to get out and talk more. And I've toyed with applying to speak at Laracon, but I haven't figured out like
you should
what to do for a talk.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And with that, Dalton, would you like to do a wrap?
Oh, you want me to do it?
Yeah, you did last show. You did good.
Thank you all for listening to another episode of The Midwest Artisan. I've been Dalton, that's Andy, and special thanks to our special guest, Doug, for sitting in and talking all about his experiences and his skills. Much appreciated. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.